Now I think one of the most defining features on any car is the hood. And in this case, we're doing such a unique project that what I really want to do is make something different, something that nobody else has. I didn't want to have the exact same hood everyone else has. So my vision is to make a custom hood scoop. Now I've never done this before, I'll be trying something new, but if we can knock this out of the park and make something unique, we can make this car stand out and make it mean something. My name is Trooper Max, and I'm restoring a car that's been off the road since 1977. But I've never done this before. I've taken the time to do my research, and I'm building the car of my dreams, hoping to inspire others to do the same. All right, so we're back on the hood of our 72 Nova. Last time we were here, we actually were working on this thing. We were planning on restoring it, and before we even got to that stage, we found all the different holes, so we had to fix all the holes. There was a lot of welding and whatnot. But at the same time, we did manage to restore the other side of it. We haven't even touched this side yet. We're gonna be touching it soon. We're gonna be taking off all the paint, hoping there's nothing under there. But first, yeah, what's up, Bobbies?
Wanna fix it.
You wanna fix it? I got help today. I got two people to help me out. I got Bobbies.
Hello, people. Nobody's hearing me.
And I got Molly over there for moral support. Molly's sitting in. So this car is going to be a 70s tribute car, so I kind of want to do a forward-facing scoop. Now, there was one I liked. Lex, what's your favorite car?
Mustang Boss.
Mustang Boss, that's right, 429, right? So you want to have a Mustang Boss one day? Yeah? What kind of tires do you want to put on it?
Fat wheels, the burnout so fat.
My man, fat tires on the back for burnouts. That's right, good job. Look, so this is what we got here. Actually, it's your book that we got here when you were younger. That's got a Mustang Boss right here, and I actually really like that scoop. So it has like a forward-facing scoop. Let's show everybody. Okay, so this is kind of what we're thinking here. So something like that, but maybe a little more modern. So I'm thinking, yeah.
Read this book.
You're gonna read it? He's gonna read it. So I'm thinking forward-facing. I don't know how big it is. We'll see what happens. I don't even know if I can build this thing. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna be moving this. We're gonna try to build it with cardboard.
Whoa!
If we can build it with cardboard, maybe, just maybe, we can build metal. Or maybe not, who the hell knows? We're gonna try though. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna try with this. I don't know how big this thing's gonna be. So we're just gonna play around with it. We're just gonna see what we can do in terms of size and dimensions and whatnot. And until we get something we kind of like, and then if it's a shape that can be mimicked on metal, well then we'll go for it, we'll see. Do you think that I could do it? Yeah? Okay, let's give it a shot. So after some messing around, this is where we're at. We got a scoop, we have some louvers here. I'm not necessarily putting these on, I just thought it looked kind of cool. And one thing I learned is when we were trying to make this thing unique, it just got too busy and too ridiculous, so going simpler worked better. But one thing I want to do here that's not actually possible to do with cardboard is that this part here, I want it beveled. The reason I want it beveled is because you have this part here. The bumper is also very much curved. There's a lot of curves on this car. So if we have this straight like this, it doesn't look very intentional, it doesn't really match. I originally wanted to have a cold air intake with an old school air cleaner underneath, even though this is an LS, you can do that. The problem is, at that point it's a hot air intake. So hot air robs the car of horsepower, so that's why you see all the new cars with the intake behind the headlight, because that's the coldest air, that's gonna give the car the most power. For me, it's more important to have the performance than that old school look. So we're not going to dress it as an old school look underneath. It's going to be a modern looking engine. I think this is a good starting point. I like the size. I like how it looks. I think we're going to go for it. We're just going to see if we can build this thing because I really have no idea if I can even make something curved. So we'll see what happens. So after a little bit of messing around, we have a very impressive start to our hood scoop. And I gotta tell you, I'm really liking this thing. And what's even cooler is the fact that my wife likes it too. So that's pretty cool, we're on the same page there. Now what's neat about this is the way it kind of worked out was, not only do we have the curve in the front, there's no way we can do the curve in the back just because of the way it goes. But with the design, what happens is, I thought I would have to strengthen this, because if you press here, it starts going down. But what's cool is, if we take this to complete it, we're going to take this piece and just twist it basically, and it's going to start curved and then it's going to end up more square. What this does, it kind of makes it more bulky, it makes it kind of stronger. So when you go like this, you kind of get an arch effect over here, so kind of like an arch ceiling. So now it becomes super strong, so there's no way in hell I'd have to do anything there. Hey, it worked in the cathedrals when they built cathedral ceilings, you know, with the arches. It's gonna work here, so I think that's pretty cool. So we're just gonna keep working from this point. I'm really pleased with it so far. So now we're just gonna grab the welder and start tacking it together and see what we can do. So we've completed our scoop, and I gotta say I'm pretty damn happy. I'm especially proud of this body line here because it's quite unique. You know how it turns from a curve into more of a bend over here. It's just kind of unique and looks different. I look at this thing, I'm like, man, that's pretty freaking cool to be able to do this. And the way we got there was basically, we just started welding from the other side, and it was just a matter of taking our time. We do a couple welds, and then we start cooling it off and cleaning off. So I'm using flux core. It gets really hot. You gotta make sure you cool this thing down, otherwise it's gonna warp. So that's what we just kept doing. It was just a matter of going over and over and over again. It took a lot of time. And then once we got everything welded, then at that point we were able to mold it into its final form. And then once everything was complete, it's just really a matter of grinding it all down, getting it into the final form that we want it to be, and then we got a scoop. Now the next stage is really to just put it on. In order to do that, we gotta take it off again. We gotta start tracing our area where we're gonna be doing our cuts, cut our hole, and then we can start reinforcing this thing. All right, so we flipped this over, just prepping for the next stage. And now here's the weird part. When I cut this thing open and took it off, on the top of the cross member, there's absolutely no rust. I mean like zero, which is weird to me because I don't get that lucky. But anyways, I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna keep going because that's amazing. So really happy to know that underneath all this is not rust, but rather it's in great shape. It's actually painted from the factory. It's still that shape, which is great. The next thing I wanna do is actually fix this. So we've cut it open. What I wanna do is actually reinforce it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take a piece of metal and I'm just gonna basically picture frame it on the inside. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna take a piece of metal, measure it out, cut the pieces to the right dimension, put some weld through primer on. Then it's just a matter of picture framing it, welding it on using some rosette welds, and this thing should be ready to go. It's the following day. Our rosette welds are completed. All they got to do is be grinded down. Now, last night, I actually ended up taking some panel bonding adhesive. I had some 3M left over from when I was doing the dashboard, and I ended up putting it just under the metal here where the cross support comes, just so it's not separating. So there was some separation, and I just clamped them down overnight. At the same time, I went under the hood and I just filled some areas where there was panel bonding adhesive a long time ago where I just had let go. So just so that this skin isn't coming off the actual support here. So anyways, we're gonna take this off now. Really, the idea here is that, oh, I got some wood in there, that's hilarious. I don't want, see how it's super tight now? This metal was actually coming off this. I don't want any movement. So we have our bracket underneath and we have this, and now everything's super tight. See how this side did? Same thing. Okay, so everything's on nice and tight, so that's great. That's what we want. So now that that's good, I'm just gonna clean up my welds to make sure they're flat and clean up any sort of debris here. We can move on to the next stage. All right, so it looks pretty good. Ideally, I would have filled these voids here with panel bonding adhesive or something like that, but I ran out, so I can't do that. What I'm gonna do after this is primed, I'm actually gonna use seam sealer, and I'm gonna fill all that stuff in later. But right now, it's time to actually strip the rest. So this is the fun part. We're gonna be stripping this thing. I'm not stripping the entire thing. I'm actually gonna leave anything around here. I'm just gonna leave a little gap, which is why I put these lines here. This is how big the scoop is. I'm just gonna strip that. We'll weld it on and then I'll strip the rest, and I'll show you why later on. But before we do that, I want you guys to give me a prediction. What do you think? Do you think this is gonna be good, or do you think I'm gonna run into problems? Because right here, there is some real thick rust. I have a feeling that if I start going through that, I may very well burn through it. I'm a little worried, so let me know right now. All right, I'll get the SCT out and let's get started. All right, so almost ready to put the scoop on. Now, before we do, the one thing we want to do is I want to prep the surface for epoxy. So when we're going to be spraying epoxy, the scoop's actually be on, so we're not going to have access to this again. Now, when you strip it like this, it's very smooth, it's too fine. I actually want to take a sander and create some tooth. Basically, this helps the epoxy adhere better. So I got a 120 grit, so I'm going to take this and just hit this whole area so that when the epoxy goes on, there's no chance for adhesion failures. So you could really see a difference from here and over here, where it's really smooth to over here. So this is what I want. So I'm just gonna hit the whole thing and we're gonna put our scoop on. So our scoop's on. I actually took the time to take our sander and just break down any sort of high points on this before we prime it. We're not doing body work today, but we just want to get it as flat as possible, just because I'm not a body man, I've never done this before. This is going to be a challenge to make it look really good. So let's give ourselves every shot we can. So now it's in position, and now it's just a matter of putting the right spot. I have my numbers, so I put it in the place where I want it. Now I know it's resting in the right spot. And I just cleaned it all up. At the same time, I cleaned and sanded underneath it because I'm not gonna have access again, and just got it ready to go. So now it's time to take some magnets. We're just gonna put this thing in the final position, and we're just gonna start tacking it down. This is gonna be a slow process. We're gonna move around a lot so it doesn't get too hot. We're gonna use our air, and we're gonna get this thing on. So the scoop is on, the welds have been all shaved down, and overall I got some good news and I got some bad news. The bad news is the fact that despite putting this thing on and cooling it and making sure that it's as cold as possible, it's still warped. So if you actually look at the time lapse, you can actually see this thing slowly sinking. So what's happened is, because that happened, it's actually become warped in some areas. So you can actually see, if you take a ruler and a straight edge, you can see the warp. So that kind of sucks. At the same time, there is some oil canning in areas, so the metal isn't exactly the way it should be. This is gonna be a challenge to fix. I was really hoping to finish this and then just spray it with epoxy and fix any sort of errors with body filler. But here's the problem, I can't do that. If I'm to do that, I'm gonna cause myself a world of problems because it is warped. There's too many dips. There's some areas that it's literally almost half an inch of body filler if I were to do it. So what I gotta do is I gotta learn how to do some body work. I'm talking about hammer and dolly, learn how to flatten this out. But the hardest part about this is going to be fixing it where there's cross members, because there's some areas that sank and I just can't access those areas from below. So I don't know how I'm gonna do this, but we're gonna be doing a whole series on how to do body work. So I'm gonna be educating myself and I'm gonna give it a shot. I have no idea, but the good news is the hood looks awesome. This is still savable. It looks great. It's hard to believe where we started when we began with this and how far we've come. At the end of the day, we restored a hood and we built a scoop. That's pretty cool. The problem that I made was using flux core. Flux core was the issue. It burns way hotter. than regular with the gas, and that's what happened. It got too hot and it caused the warping. So I think this would have been fine had I not used flex core, but I did. Can't go back now. In the end, it's still a massive win for me. We are gonna figure out how to fix this. At the end of the day, it's a win. It's definitely a win. I'm pretty happy with it. So we'll see what can be done. And next on, it's pretty exciting. We move on to the final piece on the exterior of the car that hasn't been touched at all, and that's the doors. So we're gonna be doing the doors. I have no idea how to do them. We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna see if we can restore them. They also look like they have some issues, so hope to see you guys there.